All right, thanks for joining us for another conversation in our series where we're sharing ideas in support of distance learning here in Nebraska. And this is a particularly interesting challenge, I would say, when it comes to the logistics of thinking about how you connect with a school that maybe is not on the same academic calendar, where our vacations or downtime is different, parent-teacher conferences, etc., and also bell schedules, right? And so if class period 1 gets over at 9 a.m. at the other school, but yours class 2 starts at 9:05, or 9:10. What do we do kind of with some of those transitions? So with that being said, I'm really grateful that we have both Amy and Dené from ESU 5's World Language Program to help us think through this and to share a little bit about their experiences with navigating some of those conversations, the coordination, collaboration, pacing. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this really important topic. And so I'm going to go ahead and just turn things over to them to explore some of the nuances that goes into all of that planning and preparation.
Well, I think to start, I would say that, so this is my second year as a fully online distance learning teacher. And prior to this, I was responsible for levels 1 through 4 for French at an OPS high school. And so I had already gotten into the habit of color coding pretty much everything because it helped my brain understand when I needed to be teaching what level. And I've used those skills and transferred them over to this position because this year I have 5 different schools that I'm teaching either Spanish 1, Spanish 2, or French 1-2. So it's multiple languages, multiple levels. And I'm a very visual person, hence the color coding reference. And so I'm not only color coding my content for my students so they can see clearly, oh, I'm working with Maxwell Wildcats, so everything is orange because that's their school colors. Like it tailors some of what they're seeing online to them. But it also helps me remember, oh, okay, I'm in period 7 and period 8 now, and this is who I'm teaching to when I have multiple schools that I need to keep track of. And I do that on a paper calendar. I do that on a digital calendar. My Canvas has it separated so students can see clearly for which district they're in for when we're working on which assignment on Canvas within one Spanish 1 section. I know some other teachers do a separate Canvas course for each of their sections. So we have some wiggle room when it comes to that for our LMS organization. But as you said, Andrew, what do you do when you have a class that ends at 9 and you have another class that starts at 9:05? Or in my case, I have a class that ends at 9:59 and my next one starts at 10:01 at a completely different district and a different level. What I do when I come in, like part of my workflow is to come in. And because we do share screen the majority of the time, we teach and I'm on one screen projected as the teacher, and then on another large screen for the classroom that's receiving is the content that we're sharing and talking about and referencing. So I make sure that when I come into work by 8 a.m., I always have my windows are set up. So for example, if I have period 5 Spanish 1, I have a period 5 Spanish 1 that has that student, that class calendar. It has their Canvas. It has anything that we're using as a dev tool that I've already pre-populated into a window. So I can hide all the other ones and just focus on that one period so my transitions are smooth. So I would say from that perspective, like I tried to work, I know Amy's going to talk about day-by-day basis, but this is part of my workflow as an online teacher is making sure that what I'm going to reference and share with the students is ready to go. Because again, I'm moving from a block in person to the 45-minute or less class. And we have so much content. There's so much that we cover within our curriculum over the 2-year world language program that I'm very much like a bell-to-bell teacher as I've been trained from my prior districts. So I try to translate that as much as I can to the online setting in this way.
And I would agree with Dené. I think we are very much alike as in our planning, and we are prepared and we're bell to bell and we take our profession very strictly and strongly. I'm probably just not as planned out as far. So every night I will. So she talked about, I'll kind of backtrack. She talked about having French 1 through 4. I was in a district where I had Spanish 1 through 4 on my own.
Mhm.
Now I just have Spanish 1, 2. But I kind of consider each class period I have as its own prep. Although we're doing the same curriculum, they might be in different places, and that's okay. So every day I have a new presentation created for each class period that says, like, I teach Sumner Eddyville Miller. So SEM Spanish 1 on this day. And my stuff is ready to go so that I can tailor it individually to my students' needs. Maybe this class is struggling with something. So I have that ready to go every night so that the kids are able to go at their own pace because their schedules are so different. But at the same time, they're getting the curriculum and we're moving along as we should. So instead of having just Spanish 1, 2 as 2 preps, I now consider each class period its own prep. And that's a lot. That kind of makes the ability to adapt to their schedules a little bit easier. So I try to keep them similar in the same like places, but it's not always possible for me to do that. So I would say just being maybe flexible. And then if I get behind, like let's say Sumner Eddyville had a week break where Kimball Banner, they did not have that break. So they're far ahead. Then we just I can either add materials, have supplemental materials, like fun cultural activities, fun videos, supplemental to help with what we're doing. Or I can just move them forward because eventually the other group will have a break also that will put them behind. So it's kind of just treating each class as its own prep and its own needs and its own like ability to go at a pace that is conducive to them, I think is also important. But
Yeah, I would.
just being flexible. I think relying on proctors and students to do tons of communication. Like Senora Wiedel, we have these activities. I have one who will send me a weekly schedule of what students are going to be gone for the week, which I have found to be super helpful. So I think just communicating with your students, communicating with your proctors, and just knowing ahead of schedule, like this week, this school's off on this day, so I will move forward on Thursday instead of Wednesday is super important. And then referencing back to Dené's Canvas, I think that is also a very strong point of our program and our organization, that our Canvas homepages are set up so that our assignments are numbered in a very orderly, meaningful fashion. So we go to 3.01, 3.02, 3.03 each day. So if a student happens to be gone, or if 3 students are gone to FFA for the day, they can get onto our Canvas page and they can check like the date, and they can see, okay, this is what Senora Wiedel did today. And in that, on that Canvas link, it will take them to the presentation that we did for the day. It will allow them to fill out if they have their physical worksheet, or there's an annotation tool where they can fill out the worksheet online. And so it allows them, if they want to, be responsible and they want to keep up and they want to know what's going on, which a lot of students do, then they will get on and they can be prepared for the day. So I think just being organized, having open communication, and being flexible are super important skills for us to use in managing all of these different calendars and systems.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me then that if they were to get slightly off the multiple different sections that you're teaching, the idea of, there'll be maybe some more activities, enrichment pieces that could kind of navigate some of that difference. And we talked already too about, well, what if it is a very tight window between the transition between the 2 courses? Something that I hear from kind of the statewide lens, because we're chiefly tasked with helping schools connect to be able to find a good fit, right? And so I want to ask, I'm going to ask this as it might pertain to someone who's delivering from a district to another district, so maybe not full-time in a studio, though I think the lessons that you all have learned could apply to this. Let's say that my school is looking for a course and that our class period would start at 8:50, but the previous class period from the class that's being requested would need to kind of overlap with that in some way. And so I think oftentimes we say, nope, this will never work. We're going to shut this down because there's a misalignment when it comes to these hours. But I know in your program, there are situationally times where two classes are kind of present at the same time because of that bell schedule conflict, though those windows might be somewhat short. How does that work? Like really? And I'm sure there's, that's a very long way to ask that question, but that might be the question that is facing someone listening to this right now, is they're saying, well, would love to do this, but gosh, we're gonna overlap for 10, 15 minutes. So how would you help that person out?
Well, I have had quite a bit of experience with that. So, a couple of things that you can do is maybe on one day you actually have the students come together in both schools and they play a game together, or they do an activity that's conducive to a larger group together. Or we have done where I have ended a class, like I split the gap. So, if it's a 10-minute class or 10-minute gap, I will spend 5 minutes with the first district, get off 5 minutes early and go to the next district. And what that does is just, I usually am well planned ahead. So the students know, like the one I leave, they have 5 minutes left of the activity they need to work on, or a task that they need to complete, like an exit ticket. And the other class has a bell ringer that they're to be doing until I enter. Or they have an activity that maybe we didn't quite get done with the day before and they've been instructed and the proctor has been instructed. It's key that your proctors understand also what the expectations are, because we do have an adult physically in the classroom that can make these things happen. So I think just splitting the gaps, bringing them together occasionally, kind of just working with that time. I've also had times where I needed more time with my first period and I gave a 10-minute activity with my other class. I know some of our teachers also use that time for them to complete missing assignments, check grades. We do have built-in activities like Quizlet. They can do vocab review, campanadas, bell ringers, where they can go on and do online activities. So I think just having a plethora of activities to make that work, and it works well.
And then I would kind of bring things to a close here as our time goes pretty quickly. Dené, is there anything that we've not addressed with regards to academic calendars and bell schedules that you feel is worth noting for folks as they consider what that might mean getting started?
I think the last thing I would say for somebody who maybe is looking at coming into online teaching is to recognize that your academic year and your daily schedule is going to be different from year to year, right, Amy? Mm-hmm. You might start at 8:30 one academic year and finish at 3:45, whereas another year you might be starting at 7:45 and finishing at 2:30 with various planned periods. So I would just say the idea of flexibility is extremely important, and to know that because of the nature of working with multiple districts across the state of Nebraska to make these programs available, that's part of the challenge. And for me, part of what I enjoy about it is that the years are so different from one to the next. It keeps me motivated and challenged within this position.
Well, thank you for sharing how you've navigated some of these challenges, both of you, and to the betterment of everyone who's out there considering being a part of this effort to ensure that we have these learning experiences for students statewide, and especially when those might not be available to them in their local context. And know that there's programs like ESU 5's World Language Department out there to support. And so if you're interested, make sure that you reach out to them and just visit their site even to learn a little bit more about the great work that they're doing in support of world language teaching and learning in our state. And then with that, also be aware that there is a clearinghouse of courses that is provided through our NVIS site through the ESU Coordinating Council, where you can go and see what courses your school could stand to receive. And if you don't see what you're looking for, please submit a request, because we try to make the connections with our schools across the state. Our ESUs are connected to every school and to non-publics across Nebraska. And so we'll do our best to ensure that we're able to find that certified Nebraska teacher to help deliver the course that your students would benefit from getting the chance to learn from. So Dené, Amy, thank you so much for your time, for sharing here. And for those viewing, make sure you check out the other videos in this series.